This is the MHS Pawdcast, the online radio voice of Metuchen High School.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Metuchen High School Podcast, episode 16 of the 2020-21 school year with Itai Geller. I'm Itai Kalegi. Lots to get to today. Crazy to think, month of May, just 6 weeks left in the school year. Things are moving fast. Spring is in season, and the end of year plans are starting to come into form. So first today, Joe Stibich and I will be joined by Ms. Gazda to spotlight the PAWS Unified Physical Education program, their message, and how you can get involved. Then Josh Hyman and I will talk about all the latest in Metuchen High School spring sports, a torrent red-hot start for the baseball team led by their pitcher, Matt Rowe, including a historic offensive stretch for softball, along with all the latest news in golf and tennis, and some track meets over the past couple of weeks. And then finally, Julia Hirschfield and I will be joined by Director of Bands, Mr. Messenger, to discuss their in-person rehearsals outside that have just started, preparing for the upcoming spring concert on May 20th, the first performance in the borough in over a year. But before all that, here are the announcements from Itai Geller.
Thank you, Eddie. First, a reminder to all seniors that they must complete the senior graduation survey on Naviance as soon as possible. And of course, congratulations to all the seniors on their college decisions. Also, signups for sports physicals are now available. If interested, pick up a physical packet from the vestibule and return it to the nurse no later than May 19th. If you are interested in some preparation classes for the upcoming school year, look no further than the MHS Summer Institute. Summer Institute programs have been designed to provide students with strategies for learning, transitioning into a new grade, preparing for more rigorous AP classes, and beginning the college application process. They are available to rising fifth graders, middle, and high school students. Registration and payment is due by June 4th. Finally, for more information, the principal's newsletter for the month of May is now available under the news tab on the school website. That's all for the announcements. Back to you, Eddie.
Thanks, Itai, and let's move on to our first interview now, spotlighting the PAWS Unified program. Continuing here in the Metuchen High School Podcast, the online radio voice of MHS, I'm Itai Kalegi with Joe Stibich. One of the more unique programs offered at Metuchen High School is PAWS Unified Physical Education. To spotlight the organization, we're joined by one of its leaders, MHS Phys Ed teacher, Ms. Gazda. Welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome, guys. Good to see you.
So just curious about the background of the program. How did the idea for the Unified PE program at MHS first originate?
That's actually a great question. About 8 years ago, we had a young lady who was wheelchair bound. And we had just, she had to have phys ed. That's mandatory, as we all know, to graduate. So we added an adaptive PE class. So she was in that. And it was her and I, and sometimes I'd pull some gen ed students in, and we'd do some small activities, or she'd work on stretching because she was in a wheelchair. So we needed to stretch, certain areas that would normally not get stretched during her day. So then after she graduated, enter now the self-contained room. So the students in the self-contained room, like every student, needs phys ed. So, my wife actually runs the unified program over at Monroe, and she has done it for over 10 years. So that was able to give me some input on how to get the ball rolling here, so to speak. And what it is to give students with intellectual disabilities the ability to be in a non-judgmental situation and work together with neurotypical students, one-on-one, two-on-one, small group socialization, which is key for any student. I mean, look at what we're dealing with now with COVID. Even more so, socialization is at the forefront of our class.
So obviously this is a great program. We're just kind of curious about how the high school has embraced it.
Well, honestly, each year and this year was a little tough with trying to get the students out there to apply, but the students apply for entry into the class. So it's an elective type program where the students do apply, similar to what would be like a peer leadership, but this is their physical education class. Juniors and seniors, or sophomores and juniors from the previous year, apply for the class. And it is a regular phys ed class with modifications set for the various students. And honestly, the uniqueness, as you say, and we use the token phrase uniquely the same, we're all different, but we all somehow can solve a problem in our own unique way. And that's the neat thing about this, how the high school has embraced it. They've dealt with adversity throughout their high school careers as students. Every single one of us have, and for these students should be no different. And I think the schools embraced them by, just helping them out. Even in a general phys ed class, I see the empathy, the compassion in some of the students who are in just a regular PE class. So I think when they see the unified class walking through the gym and they're like, ooh, what's that? The wheels turn, or, hey, can you help me out? And in the beginning, actually, guys, in the beginning, I had 4 students in the self-contained class, and I didn't have any typical students. So I went with what I knew of students that were in that class period from general ed, and I took some seniors and brought them on board. And when they went to health, I took juniors and they helped me. So that's how that was like a pilot. And then we went to the administration and they were definitely on board to try to give these students of intellectual disabilities that opportunity to be a part of something probably bigger than themselves, and who benefits more are probably the neurotypical students.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned just the benefits overall, of course, for those students, and then also other students who, are showing empathy and really getting to help and getting to do that during the school day. Really a great opportunity that prepares them also for their adult life to get to help people out. But I just was curious, you mentioned like some of the modifications, of course, as you try to make the physical education program really something that everyone can enjoy. I was curious if you could share some examples of some of the activities that you guys participate in through Unified PE.
Well, we treat it very similar to a general PE class that you guys go to. They have stretching, we are goal oriented. So we might do more assessments, and the students with intellectual disabilities will assess their partners in how they balance, how many push-ups they do, how many sit-ups they do, how fast do they run, how do they walk, how do they skip, how do they gallop. So all fine motor skills. And then that would be, say, the beginning of the year. So everybody gets to know each other, but we also do socialization. So some of the stuff that you might even do in like a sociology class, or maybe some of the stuff you guys have done online the last 14 months, just trying to get to know each other. That's important. So the communication skills, try to look outside the box for certain things. And you think about it, the typical students, you think about how you all are with your friends. These young men and women are so interested in what you're doing in your daily life, and we try to flip that coin and have that discussion as well with them. So it's pretty neat to see how everybody interacts. We play basketball, we play versions of volleyball, so we do bowling. So soccer, they love it. Like a couple of kids, like his best thing is to be a goalie. Like he's like Mr. Albanese may say, hey, give Liam Benderly a run for his money, So.
So you touched on this a bit when discussing how it's been a little bit more difficult to get people recruited. How else has the pandemic really affected the program?
Well, you know what? The most difficult thing about Unified this year was the hybrid component, because when you have, let's say, most of the typical students on screen and the kids with intellectual disabilities, some of them were in person. That was difficult because I do a lot of like would you rather's exercise slides. I do a lot of that. We do yoga, we do meditation, we do at something you asked, hey, what do we do? They devised exercise programs. I gave them, they'd be in their little groups and I'd put them out into breakout rooms and I'd have them create a workout for, say, somebody who might be blind, who might have different challenges. And it could be ambulatory, non-ambulatory. So, and they'd create a little workout and make them really think. And everybody had input on it, no matter what ability level they were, which was fun to watch evolve.
So last question, you briefly touched on the application process. So I'm curious what that entails and what sort of students you're looking for to be helpers in the Unified PE program.
I tell you what, there's really not too many people are off the choice list, if you will. We need people who are compassionate. They'll go through, the process would be, applications would be handed out mid-January. We ran interviews the first day of the third marking period, which was beginning of February. We had our list to guidance by mid-February of what students we felt were, that would fit the program after an interview process, application process, faculty review. So it's intense. And, it's not that they're helpers, they're not mentors, they're classmates of the students with intellectual disabilities. And we have to make sure they'd have that right bond. So, and it's tough in a 5 to 10 minute interview to try to figure that one out. And this year we did all the interviews via Zoom, which it worked out well. But the kids will be notified, but where we have a problem sometimes it was with our scheduling. Some of the kids who are qualified and into the program, they may not be able to fit it into their schedule. And that sometimes is a downfall, but it's so far we've been doing pretty well. We have a great group of kids this year. I just, wish the pandemic really didn't come when it did, because it makes a big difference. Now the kids are starting to filter back in, which I enjoy. I had another student say, hey, I'm coming back tomorrow. So I'm like, this is the last 30 days. Let's go. So that's what I'm gearing for. We'll be able to do a lot of the in-person stuff outside. So that's what I'm happy to see at the end of the year.
Well, absolutely. And the Unified PE program, like you said, very unique, and it's a great program for everybody who gets involved. Ms. Gazda, thanks for coming on today to spotlight this.
Thanks, guys. And you know what? Hey, guys, real quick, we do have a Unified club. Anybody in the building is eligible to be a part of it. So something to think about. We've done the polar plunge for fundraiser. We've sold shirts. We go to youth summits and things like that through the Special Olympics. And that is our partner. We are a partner with Special Olympics as well. We have received a grant. But Eddie, Joe, thank you. You guys are wonderful. You're doing a great job with the podcast.
Well, we really appreciate it. And coming up after the break, Josh Hyman and I will talk about all the latest in MHS spring sports, including red hot starts for the baseball and softball teams. Then Julia Hirschfield and I will be joined by Director of Bands, Mr. John Messinger, to preview the upcoming spring concert. For Joe Stibich, I'm Itai Geller. This is the Metuchen High School Podcast, the online radio voice of MHS.
Having trouble seeing the board in class? Do you need safety glasses for your school sport? If you answered yes to either of these questions, head over to Optique Unique, the eyeglass store at 406 Main Street in Metuchen. Optique Unique does it all. Not only do they offer eyewear for all ages, they also sell sports-specific safety glasses for kids and adults. Call them at 732-321-2020. That's 732-321-2020, or visit OptiqueUnique.com. Do you want to build character, build confidence, or even build yourself? All that and more can be accomplished at the Black Belt Institute at 23 New Street, right here in Metuchen. Students of all ages have been able to learn respect, discipline, fitness, and self-defense from their experienced instructors for over 20 years. Whether you're an adult looking for stress reduction or know someone young who has interest in Taekwondo, the Black Belt Institute is the place to go. The Institute takes a fun approach at teaching the rules of self-defense, instilling in their students an I-can-do-it attitude. Interested in taking a class? Call them at 732-205-9797 or visit their website at blackbeltinst.com. Once again, that's 732-205-9797 or blackbeltinst.com. The Black Belt Institute, Metuchen's leader in martial arts and fitness.
Welcome back to the Metuchen High School Podcast, the online radio voice of MHS. I'm Josh Hyman.
And I'm Itai Geller.
The competitive spring season has only been rolling for about 2 weeks, but several of Metuchen High's teams are already in postseason form. Starting off, the softball team has quickly become one of the powerhouse programs in the state of New Jersey, sitting undefeated through 8 games. They also had a no-hitter yesterday. Who's leading the way, and can they keep this up throughout the regular season?
Well, I mean, the numbers are just staggering for the softball team. 7 of their 8 victories have come via the mercy rule. That's at least a 10-run lead through 5 innings or less. 3 games they've won by 15 or more runs. They've pitching-wise, it's not just the offense either. They've allowed 1 or fewer runs in 7 of their 8 games. And yes, they capped off a 2-game sweep. They won a couple in a row earlier in the season. And then yesterday they ended up defeating Denellen on Tuesday, and that was a no-hitter from Abby Kozo. Now, Abby Kozo is part of the group of elite underclassmen that are doing really well. For Kozo, 22 2/3 innings pitched and 43 strikeouts. She's only allowed 3 hits and 1 run. She's been dominant on the mound, but then she's also been doing everything at the plate as well. She's hitting .833. That means she's only gotten out 4 times. She's 20 for 24. She has 17 RBI. Brianna De La Fuente, another sophomore, has 5 home runs in 8 games, 19 RBI, and is batting a cool .667. I mean, these are like video game numbers. And yes, sometimes you'll see inflated numbers in baseball or softball early in the season, or especially in high school where some teams might be more stacked than others. But this is unprecedented for Metuchen. And like we talked about on the last show, the expectations were high, but not that high going into the season because they were only returning 2 players, Noelle Leaf and Annika Frick, who have both played really well. Frick pitching, Leaf hitting, Frick also hitting pretty well as well. She had a game-high 5 RBI in the no-hitter. But that being said, this team, they only went 10-11 with that previous group. They were 1-8 in games outside the GMC Blue Division. And the fact that they move here and are just dominating every single game, it's really impressive. Now, I do think it's going to be good for them to get some challenges. They will, notably May 18th, they face off with St. Thomas Aquinas. And as we both know, that is one of the top elite high schools locally for sports in almost any sport, and softball is no exception. So that will be a real proving ground game for them and a tough test that could hopefully prepare them for the GMC tournament, where they have to face off with teams from like the red and the gold division who might be a little higher octane. But I mean, they're doing an excellent job right now. No reason to think that things are going to change. Everybody in that lineup, top to bottom, are producing. They're scoring 10+ runs every game except for 1. It's insane, really, what this team has been able to do. But one last thing with this softball team, I feel like this is sort of a trend we've seen that me and you have alluded to about girls sports here in Metuchen. There are some great athletes, of course, in the class of 2020, class of 2021, but there weren't that many. But starting with the class of 2022, and especially for the class of 23, there are just so many talented female athletes that are getting the chance as underclassmen to participate on varsity teams. And it's preparing them, of course, for their upperclassmen years, but they're doing a great job as young players, like basketball in the winter, where they only had one senior. The soccer team, the girls' soccer team, the last couple of years have only had one senior per year. Like this is nothing new, but it's really amazing the turnaround the softball team has had from a 500 team 2 years ago, a complete wholesale roster change, and now Coach Hannah Thomas is sitting there with an 8-0 team that is flat out just blowing out every opponent they face.
Yeah, this is incredible stuff. Like you said, it is like video game numbers, like ultimate team we're talking about. And you made an interesting point there where usually you see this kind of scoring very early on in the season and then things kind of mellow out and, you lose a bit of energy. Well, that's not really the case with the girls softball team. We're talking about the last 4 games here, outscoring their opponents 61-2. And their last 4 games, they went 14-0 over Denellen, 8-1 over Monroe, 27-0 over South Amboy, and 12-1 over Spotswood. Abby Kozo hitting 6 runs, 31 strikeouts in those last 4 games. Annika Frick with 10 RBI and 1 home run. Brianna De La Fuente with 1 RBI and 1 home run. And Mia Schaap with 6 runs, a home run, and 5 strikeouts. This is crazy stuff, especially this far into the season. You really do not see anything like that. And as we saw, 3 out of 4 of those names are underclassmen. So, it's only going to get better from here for this girls softball team.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one more thing to add, one of those other games that we broadcasted on the Bulldog Report, once again, just a quick plug, any baseball and softball broadcast, they stream the home games. I do the play-by-play. The media club helps with the behind the scenes, but you can watch some of those games on the Bulldog Report on YouTube. We were broadcasting a game against South River where the first 19 batters reached base for Metuchen before South River was able to record an out. They had to switch pitchers. Like, it was a mess. And Metuchen scored 18 runs in the first inning of that game. Like, they go on these tears where it seems like nobody in that lineup can be stopped. It's not just 1 or 2 players. Like you mentioned, 4 different players there. There's a whole lot more to add that from there. Like, everybody on this team is producing, and it's really the perfect combination.
Yeah, this is just ridiculous stuff coming from the softball team. Not only that, this is coming from the baseball team as well. They've been doing incredibly well in their division, currently holding an 8-1 record overall. And what have they done well, and what do they need to improve on as they approach a very difficult portion of their schedule?
Well, yeah, they're absolutely doing great so far. They just capped off a 2-game sweep against Denellen. They combined to outscore them 28-1. Not much of a surprise. I broadcasted some of the first game earlier this week before the rain hit, and Denellen really didn't pose that much of a challenge or an obstacle to Metuchen on either side of the ball. The Bulldogs were hitting Mikey Ulsummer really hard, and then Matt Rowe was just cruising. And for Rowe, we haven't seen him that much this season. There was a big gap between his first and his second start, and he only went 3 innings with the rain impending, but still, he's thrown 10 hitless innings, and he's a commit. He's going to be heading to Rutgers University. Another thing I also wanted to give a shout out to in the baseball program that Mr. Cathcart just texted me about is that Jay Harry, who's the other former high school player that's a Big Ten commit. He's at Penn State right now. He just won Freshman of the Week in Big Ten baseball, so kudos to him. But focusing on the team in the here and now, this team is different from softball in that they returned a lot of, experienced players. Matt Rowe won, Max Kuhnrich, Jackson Fenner was out for the first few games. He's back now. Jack Barry, who's having a huge year, hitting .611. That's the highest average on the team. Luke Schleck, who's batting .500, has also pitched pretty solid. And of course, they're 8-1. They're undefeated in the Blue Division, but they have some tough games coming up. They face off with Spotswood, who is second place right now in the GMC Blue Division. They have to play them twice, including a home game Friday and then a quick turnaround to a road game at the Chargers home park on Saturday morning. And then they play Middlesex twice, who are currently 4-0. So those are some tough games. Now, the one concern that I have with this team going forwards, especially when they play more difficult teams, is the pitching. Because Matt Rowe, of course, you know what he can do. But aside from that, he was the only player with really significant pitching experience returning from their 2019 roster. Luke Schleck pitched a little bit, same with Nick Dillon. Nick Dillon's not a starter. Max Kunrich has pitched a little bit so far this season, hasn't been great in relief. Same for Mia Lishin, same for Nick Dillon. Benjamin Norwood has been a bright spot. He has a 3.11 ERA in 2 starts so far. And then Luke Schleck had a terrific start against St. Thomas Aquinas and then gave up 9 runs in the next start against it's North Hunterdon, which is the Bulldogs' only loss to this point. So I worry about the pitching and the consistency long-term, especially you need to get Matt Rowe out there more. He's only thrown 10 innings so far this season, albeit he did throw 110 pitches, which is almost unheard of for a high school player. That he did that in his first start in almost 2 years in high school competition, which definitely wore him out. But he had 3 really good innings again, had 8 strikeouts. He struck out all but 6 batters that he's faced so far this season. But that's not much of a surprise. It's beyond that concerns me a little bit, but the offense is doing great. Rowe's doing spectacular, and I don't see anything changing with this team either.
Yeah, like you said, that they also have incredible numbers, and I think that pitching situation does need to get resolved quickly. You know, we've seen how great Matt Rowe can play when he's healthy. And, you know, there are bright spots, like you said, with especially underclassmen like Malamug or Norwood. And they have been very, very, very good in their last 4 games, outscoring opponents 53-18. Although not as big as a gap as the girls, it's still very, very good, especially this late in the season. You know, they have that game against Spotswood coming up that they got to get ready for. That is definitely not going to be easy, especially with their inconsistencies at pitching. But in their last 4 games, they have had some very impressive numbers. You know, Matt Rowe with 5 runs, 5 RBIs, 8 strikeouts. And in the first game of the season against St. Thomas, he had 18 strikeouts, which is incredible. You know, Jack Barry's getting his teammates home with 8 RBIs, Max Kunrich with 3 runs, and Luke Schleck carrying it around with 3 runs and 6 strikeouts. You know, unlike the girls' team, they do have a lot of heavy-hitting seniors, you know, like we said, Schleck, Kunrich, Barry, and Rowe. But there are also some very promising underclassmen like Mia Lishin or Marcus Malamug or Benjamin Norwood that are definitely going to bolster this team as they graduate. And it's very interesting to know that Matt Rowe is a Rutgers commit. He could very possibly be playing Jay Harry in a Big Ten game sometime in the future, which is going to be really crazy to see for, you know, a Metuchen graduate like you or like me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's very possible because Big Ten, they typically play each other 2 or 3 times a season. Good chance that Matt Rowe could be on the mound pitching and have to face Jay Harry in that Penn State lineup. But really, really a testament to how the baseball program's going. The fact that multiple players have committed as underclassmen, both of them committed as sophomores, by the way. They were recruited from a very young age, but credit to both of them. But let's shift gears now to the track team. And I have 2 questions for you. First one, I was at Metuchen Relays for a little bit. First of all, that was the first event really at the high school that I could say that really felt somewhat normal. I know there were not as many teams there. Of course, everybody was still masked and abiding by other social distancing guidelines, but with everything going on the campus at once, all the cars, all the people, all the life at school, it really felt somewhat normal. But I can just combine it all into one. How was Metuchen Relays for you guys for that experience? And how's the team doing so far? And what do you guys have ahead?
Well, I think Metuchen Relays was a great experience for everybody all around. You know, we had we had freshmen getting it hyped up to them ever since the beginning of the season. And I think the team really did well in terms of performing and running the meet. I can speak for the throwers. We had a very good meet at Metuchen Relays. And although a few things were changed around, like, you know, capacity limits were a bit up there, they scrapped actually the throwers relays. So it wasn't actually a relay, it was individual throwers. But we did do very well at Metuchen Relays. And I think Coach Holleran is very pleased with what we've been doing, especially at those big meets. And it really does feel like the spring season is, you know, back to normal. Unfortunately, we did have a meet canceled yesterday due to a few COVID cases on the team. Nevertheless, we do have a few big relay meets actually coming up on Monday and Tuesday. So a lot of things to look forward to. GMCs are still on, sectionals are still on, everything's going to be on, although it is now pushed back to June, which, normally we would be finished up now. But, we got a lot of things to look forward to, people to watch, such as Matt Brown, Jai Dreyer, both committing to college for running, actually. Romeo Hernan in distance, Nico Hidalgo and Cameron Sinclair's underclassmen who have been putting up impressive numbers. Nico Hidalgo is close to running his 5-minute mile, actually. So, a lot to look forward to, especially this season and in upcoming seasons with the boys track team.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely true. And it's nice to see just the fact that track is back to normal. And when we had Coach Holleran on, I know I've alluded to this a few times, but he talked about how the winter season was really just, getting everybody back together, getting the training done so that they could compete in the spring season. He always expresses that's one of his favorite times of the year, getting to see all the runners out there on all these different track and field events. And it's nice to see everything back going on here at the high school.
I mean, yeah, that is an accurate description of winter season. It is brutal. It is cold. It is wet. It is miserable. It can be very rough on a lot of the kids, but you really need to go through that tough period of winter season to really be ready, to be motivated, to be tough for that spring season. Because, like you said, we had to get out there when there was 20 inches of snow on the track and dig it out. What other team does that? What other track team in the state is doing that? And that is really a testament to Coach Holleran, who is tough as nails as a coach and expects nothing but the best of his kids. And the thing is, we always deliver. The kids will always deliver year after year, especially in places that matters. And, with the track team, where we have a lot of members, a lot of different events, a lot of different, specialities, it takes a lot of kids to step up and guide the underclassmen and set a great example. And that's really something you don't see in other sports, where it is very, very individualistic, and that forces on kids a very, very important sense of responsibility, of determination, of discipline. And I think that is definitely there in this track team. And, it's good to have eager kids. It's good to have motivated kids, but you need disciplined and skilled kids, which is something I think Mr. Holleran does very well and is why he's one of the most decorated coaches in the sport's history.
All right, so let's move on to the last part here, like some other things that have been going on in MHS sports. First things first, a couple of awards that I wanted to mention. Josh already alluded to Jai Dreyer, the senior. He was named the recipient of the GMC Scholar Athlete Award. Of course, he runs track. He was also on the basketball team. We had a good time calling a couple of his dunks towards the end of the season, especially on senior night. Fellow senior on the basketball team, Luke Schleck, who also, as we mentioned, is on the baseball team, he was awarded that same honor, but at the NJSI AA level. And Coach Guy Jensen, who coaches them both in hoops, was very adamant on Twitter in praising both of his players, saying, quote, "Blessed and honored to have served as your coach, making Metuchen proud." Shifting gears to the tennis team. The boys tennis team is 3-1. They picked up a 4-1 victory in their last set of matches against Spotswood on April 27th. Most notably, in their third singles match, Anish Singh had defeated his opponent handily, 6-love, 6-1. And then lastly, with the golf teams, they're both doing really well, especially the boys. The boys are at 7-0. They're undefeated in the red division. So they're competing at a pretty high level in the GMC, getting to be a part of that red division. Very exclusive for, Metuchen teams to exceed past being in the blue division for most sports. Their last win, 159-261, not really in doubt when they faced off with Edison. Senior Nico Malamug was huge. Junior Matt DeCerbo had one of the best performances of his career. He scored a match best 37. And then juniors Joshua and Kyle Blum were strong as well. And lastly, with the girls, they're 4-1. They most recently defeated North Brunswick, extending their winless season, 208-280, the final. Their four starters all performed well. Sophie DeCoit, Stella Weitzner, Jenna DeVizio, and Nora Patton. So that's where we're at right now with spring sports.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of very impressive stuff going on at Metuchen, like we expected. These sports teams are really eager to play. They lost last year. They lost a lot of their development. So, it's great to see them just getting out there and doing incredibly well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to wrap up our sports recap segment. Let's move into our final interview now. Eddie Kalegi here with Josh Hyman. But let's shift gears and head over to our final interview as myself and Julia Hirschfield will talk to Mr. Messenger. Continuing here on the Metuchen High School Pawdcast, the online radio voice of MHS with Julia Hirschfield, I'm Eddie Kalegi. If you've stepped on the grounds of Metuchen High School in recent weeks, you've likely gotten to hear some sweet sounds from the MHS music department with different ensembles rehearsing outside. To discuss these outdoor rehearsals and the upcoming spring concert, it's great to be joined once again by Metuchen Director of Bands, Mr. Messenger. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, guys. It's nice being here.
So obviously, looking first at the class, teaching any class under the current circumstances has been difficult, but instructing a band remotely takes that to another level. What has been your biggest challenge throughout the school year?
I think the biggest challenge is just trying to keep it interesting. I know people sign up for a performing arts class to perform every single day, and sometimes that's just not possible. So how can we get the same skills and the same things that we would learn sitting down and playing every day, but how could we do that in a remote situation? So I think the challenge of just making sure that we keep the standards very, very high, and making sure that everyone that's in the band is getting what they signed up for.
On the other hand, since you guys haven't been rehearsing every day in class, you have had more time to try new things. What are some of the positive changes that have come to virtual band class throughout the school year?
No, that's an awesome question. Actually, I think there's some things that I think are going to remain even when we go back to full in-person education in the future. I know we've done a lot with learning music theory and music listening and music dictation and a lot of those things that I think might stay. I think our greatest thing is our whole guided listening program that we've set up this year, learning, how to listen to music to get more from it than it just being something in the background. And just finding out, I'm learning myself about the things that and musicians and artists that kids at home are listening to and the reasons why, and then you guys are finding out the same thing about me, what music was important to me growing up. And I think through that whole guided listening program that we started this year, I don't think that might not have ever happened if we didn't have online learning. You know what I mean? And I'm glad it, in a weird way, I'm glad it has, and I can't see a situation where it doesn't continue in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And as someone who's taking band right now, I really enjoy some of these things like guided listening, getting to explore some of the different music, like we're listening to rock and roll, R&B music. It's something you wouldn't typically do in a band class, but it's been a nice adaptation throughout the year. So let's shift gears now to the in-person rehearsals, because over the past few weeks, you've been doing some for jazz band, but now the concert band over the past few weeks as well. Could you just tell us a little more about preparing for that and now doing these in-person rehearsals outside?
Absolutely. I know that not just the band program, but the string program and the choir program and the theater program have all been kind of adapting what we've been doing, the performing arts program, in order to make it work. And as of lately, when probably in March, when the weather started getting a little tiny bit more bearable, we started doing outdoor rehearsals, and it's been completely voluntary. It's just, I tell you guys all the time that it's as much for me as it is for you. I just wanted to start conducting again and start teaching again in that way, and allowing us to come together outdoors to make it a little tiny bit safer, but still following all the guidelines that we would follow for an indoor meeting, but and just taking a one step further and doing it outside to make sure that we're completely safe, but we still follow distancing guidelines and we still wear masks. If you saw the jazz ensemble performance at the Board of Ed meeting, you got to see the performance masks, or the marching band all fall, you got to see the performance masks, and we're still using them as another safety precaution. And it's just given us the opportunity to get together. And it's for everybody, but especially for the seniors. an opportunity to get together with your other senior musicians, but also you don't think about it, but the freshmen have never played together with everybody. They've, you grow up in 5th grade band, 6th grade band, 7th grade band, 8th grade band, you're playing kind of with the same people. And this was your opportunity to play with everybody. And it's giving the freshmen a chance to see what it's like to play with all the upperclassmen as well. So it's been working out really, really well. And every week it seems to gain a little tiny bit more popularity. And we're going to keep it going for the rest of the school year.
So when is the spring concert and how will it be different from past years?
May 20th, 6 p.m. is going to be the spring concert. We're going to be hosting it in the stadium on the football field. So it'll be outdoors, kind of like graduation from last year. It'll be outdoors on the football field. The students themselves will be distance on the field, following guidelines. The audience and all participants will be masked and keeping all of our safety guidelines in the stadium. But it'll be an outdoor performance, and it'll be the first live music that we've had at Metuchen High School since March 13th, 2020. So it's a very, very exciting opportunity for us to get together, and it's a very awesome opportunity for us to start making music. And we're looking into some live streaming options as well, in case we meet capacity. We're going to be trying to stream it over social media as well, and hopefully that will be another option for everyone to tune in.
So I think you already answered this, but if you want to reiterate, how does it feel to finally get to play for a local audience after such a long wait?
It's like any opportunity. We had a friends and family night in October, and it was really, really small with the marching band, or getting to do the home football games. That was the start. But we haven't had a concert. We haven't had it, and it's just been, it's such a big part of my career, and it's such a big part of people that are taking my courses of what we do, and we haven't had the opportunity to do it. And I know friends and family are eager to sit down and listen to some music. I know we're listening to we're eager to play some music. So I'm very excited for everything to be coming together.
Absolutely, and it's going to be great to see another concert, another sign that we're starting to trend towards a little bit more normality here as we enter the spring. Mr. Messenger, thanks so much as always for joining us here on the podcast.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a beautiful spring. We'll see you soon.
Awesome. So that'll just about wrap up today's show. A thank you for our guest, Mr. Messenger, as well as Ms. Gazda from the PAWS Unified PE program, and of course for Julia, Itai, Joe Stibich, and Josh Hyman. I'm Itai Geller signing off on the Metuchen High School podcast, the online radio voice of MHS.